Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of this F1 25 Joshua Pearce career mode. This is part 29 of the series. If you did miss the last episode, we won the Austrian Grand Prix at the Red Bull Ring. It was a game of survival at the start of the Grand Prix with terrible conditions which caught out some, and we managed to get to the dry period where we were able to secure the win. But there has been massive swings in the championship with Max Verstappen having an engine failure on the race restart after a red flag, and his perfect start to the season is undone. Max Verstappen, though, he will go into this weekend still leading the Drivers' Championship, but only by 15 points to myself. Then it's Lando Norris in third, 3 points behind me, and then Sonny Hayes is in 11th, 2 points behind Carlos Sainz, and McLaren, they lead the Constructors' Championship by 29 points to Red Bull Ford. Then it's Apex GP, we're in third, 18 points behind Red Bull, and we're going to jump straight to the chassis department where we've got a minor brake upgrade with new calipers waiting for us, and once again we have a 0% failure rate which I'm going to take advantage of, and it will come in before the next race at Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix. And we're also going to take a look here at the weather, and there's going to be some cloud cover across the weekend, and for a majority of the time as well it's going to be at about 20% chance of rain, so hopefully that stays away and we can have a dry race weekend for the first time in a little bit. If I do recall, it's been quite wet as of recent times, and with the new brake calipers, we are still the fastest car on the grid and pull further ahead on paper against the likes of McLaren and Red Bull Ford. Aston Martin Honda also bring in new upgrades to get closer to Ferrari. Williams also with new parts get closer to Haas Toyota, and Audi Sport get further away from the Racing Bull Fords to solidify themselves as not just the second slowest car, but they're getting closer to that midfield battle. So look out for the Audi Sport team trying to get some points if chaos ensues.
High-speed straights, heady elevation changes and dramatic corners. What is there not to love about today? It's qualifying day here at Spa-Francorchamps.
And well, based off last year's performance in Season 1, we should have absolutely rapid pace around here. And in the one and only practice session that we did do before this sprint qualifying session, the pace was pretty well on it. I only did a couple of laps on the hard compound tyres just to kind of familiarise myself again with the circuit, and yet pace felt really good. Car felt a little bit light on the rear, so I did a few little setup adjustments, but straight away in sprint qualifying 1 here, it's ourselves fastest by 7/10 to Franco Colapinto, then Norris in third, and knocked out in SQ1 is Lance Stroll by 0.2 of a second. Then it's our teammate Sonny Hayes, unfortunately down in 18th. Then it's Isaac Hadjar, Nico Hulkenberg ahead of his teammate Gabriel Bortoleto, and Pierre Gasly rounding out the field here in sprint qualifying. And for this second time around, you can see there a little bit held up at Oscar Piastri as he was starting a lap, and so we'll go fastest, but Lewis Hamilton there followed us around the circuit and gained a very good slipstream, and he'll go fastest by only about 1/10 of a second ahead of Oscar Piastri, then myself in third. Knocked out in SQ2 though is George Russell by 100th ahead of his teammate Kimi Antonelli, making both Mercedes out. Then Fernando Alonso, Paul Aaron both the Aston Martin Hondas out as well, ahead of Carlos Sainz. And here we only did the one lap on the soft compound tyres. It wasn't a great middle sector from ourselves, no, not a great final sector as well, and that definitely has proved it into our lap time because we've only gone second fastest. So it's Oscar Piastri on sprint pole position by 0.2 to myself, and Verstappen misses out on the front row by only 200, and Lewis Hamilton, who was fastest in the last session, is all the way down in 9th. So a bad day in the office.
Forget pit stops, forget fuel management. It's pedal to the metal all the way here as we get ready for today's sprint. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Oscar Piastri lines up on pole position, and Joshua Pearce completes the front row. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Norris, Charles Leclerc and Albon, Ocon, Colapinto, Hamilton and Ollie Behrman, Russell, Antonelli, Fernando Alonso and Lawson, Aaron, Sainz, Lance Stroll and Sonny Hayes, Hadjar, Hulkenberg, Bortoleto, and Pierre Gasly picks up the final grid slot. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Radio check, please. Radio check. Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
The fact that I haven't got the sprint pole position is a little bit disappointing, but it is still a front row start, and for this front row start, we'll be on the medium compound tyres for today's sprint race here in Belgium. So let's look to the lights, and we're away for the sprint race. It's a really good start from Oscar Piastri. He's actually going to all the way go over, and he's going to cover from us, and we get sent down the inside of Verstappen. He hits Oscar Piastri, and somehow didn't get any damage from that contact. It looks pretty hefty contact there from Verstappen onto the rear of Oscar Piastri. We sit currently in between the two of them, and it's a very quick run up to the top of Raidillon, and we're using the battery to try and get ourselves alongside and ahead of Oscar Piastri. We want to get this lead as soon as possible, and we will now do that heading through into the chicane here, and that is us now up into the lead ahead of Oscar Piastri, and Max Verstappen sits in third position. Behind us, it's Norris, Leclerc, Alex Albon and the Williams doing really well to still be in the points, and so too Esteban Ocon in his Haas Toyota. Colapinto currently sits in the final points paying position in the sprint race. Remember, only the top 8 in the sprint race will receive a point, with first place receiving 8 points, and so on down, second place 7 points, etc, all the way down to 8th position. As now, this is going to be a little bit interesting. If Esteban Ocon here looking to try and get Alex Albon a little bit unawares. He'll go around the outside, going into the bus stop chicane. We'll give him the inside for the next part, but generally, the car on the outside there will get the better exit, and that is exactly what's going to happen. They'll continue to go side by side though, so Albon was able to use that better exit to get himself now down the inside here at turn 1, and they'll continue to go side by side. Do they dare go side by side through Raidillon, through Eau Rouge? It looks like the Haas Toyota's got the legs on the Williams, and he does get himself ahead of Alex Albon, but I fear that he's probably done that a little bit too well, because here comes the DRS, and now Alex Albon with that Williams, a Williams known for its straight line speed, will now go zipping past, and he'll reclaim that 6th position, as now the McLarens have actually swapped positions as well. So it's now Lando Norris ahead of his teammate Oscar Piastri, with Charles Leclerc just in behind, and Franco Colapinto has been holding down the fort in that 8th position for all this time, holding onto that 1 point for today's sprint, and he looks like he's wanting to try and get himself further up the field now. Esteban Ocon's kind of lost touch a little bit of the Williams of Alex Albon, and he now finds himself under threat from the Red Bull Ford, and this could prove very big in the Constructors' Championship, because it's currently Red Bull versus McLaren versus ourselves in this Constructors, and it is going to be absolutely pivotal for Max Verstappen to have a teammate to be able to score all of these points. Unfortunately, last season, Yuki Tsunoda in that second Red Bull seat, he wasn't able to consistently bring in the points that Red Bull were after, and he has not found himself on the grid whatsoever this season, and so which felt a little bit harsh. So Franco Colapinto really trying to prove that he's the better choice over the Japanese driver from last season, but we'll cross the line to claim victory here in the sprint race. So half the weekend is now done. We didn't get the pole position in the sprint quali, but we've redeemed ourselves with a victory, and it's going to be Max Verstappen and Lando Norris up on the podium with us, and the rest of the top 8 was Oscar Piastri, Charles Leclerc, Esteban Ocon, Alex Albon, and Franco Colapinto ended up in 8th position, and our teammate Sonny Hayes did a little bit of a recovery. He managed it at P15, but it's not points.
High-speed straights, heady elevation changes and dramatic corners. What is there not to love about today? It's qualifying day here at Spa-Francorchamps.
Alright, is this going to be the redemption session where we can try and get ourselves not only just another front row start, but let's try and get the pole position this time around? Definitely a little bit disappointing knowing how much speed there is in this car, and just this car hooks up so nicely around this circuit. I don't know what it is. It just goes so nicely as we do go fastest in qualifying 1 here. And it's by a massive margin, 7/10 of a second to George Russell. Oscar Piastri's in third, 9/10 behind. And knocked out in qualifying 1 is Lewis Hamilton by 400. Our teammate Sonny Hayes once again finds himself down in 18th. Oliver Behrman, Kimi Antonelli, Lance Stroll, and Nico Hulkenberg failing to make it to this part of qualifying. And we've had a very good lap here. We've gone purple, purple. And is it going to be another purple to finish out this lap, and it is, and we go fastest with a 41.5, and that will put us in P1 by the end of the session by a tenth to Max Verstappen. Piastri in third, half a second behind, and knocked out in qualifying twos. Paul Aaron by 3/10, Isaac Hadjar, Carlos Sainz, Esteban Ocon, Liam Lawson makes both the Racing Bull forwards out in qualifying, and Gabriel Bortoleto rounding out qualifying two as Verstappen goes fastest. He's setting the pace early on in this Q3 session. Gasly goes up to P5. We've had a little bit of a snap there on the exit of the bus stop chicane, and so that is going to prove to be a little bit costly, because we do go fastest so far in qualifying, but with the final flying laps about to take place, it is going to be very, very important that we improve, because we cannot afford to lose any time, and we go a little bit deep going into the first corner, and that's going to ruin our run now going into Eau Rouge and now to the top of Radon just a little bit, but we're up. We're still in the green as we now head down the Camel Straight, hitting the DRS button. We've jumped off the battery to try and save some for the rest of the lap, but you can see that we're slowly gaining time, and it's a purple first sector as we now go through Lacombe, and it is going to be absolutely pivotal that we keep our foot flat going through here. It's a really tricky downhill braking zone now, and we run it a little bit wide, try and go for the second apex, and we a little bit wider than I probably would have liked, and now drop it down again just to keep the car a little bit stable all the way out to the exit, a little bit of grapple as well just for good measure as we now go through Pouhon, and it's nearly flat, just very nearly flat, and we touch the inside curb there, which really unsettled the car, and it was very lucky that we did manage to catch it. We're still going green. We're now a tenth and a half up on our previous best lap time, and once again just touching the gravel going on the exit there, and now it is foot to the floor until we hit the next braking zone for the bus stop chicane, and it is going to be a big braking zone. That's the real last challenge of this lap. Hit the brakes as hard as possible, as late as we dare, and try and gain as much time as we can. It's only a green middle sector though, and so we've lost a little bit of time compared to our last middle sector on the previous lap. With this time it's a little bit cleaner going through, but we've lost time. Actually, we've lost time going through there, but we will improve, not by much, but that is going to be a pole position for ourselves, and it is going to be by only a tenth to Max Verstappen, who's on the front row with us, and it's a massive gap back to Charles Leclerc, who is over a second behind, and it's a tough day on Sunday for Lando Norris, who wants to stay within this championship fight, but he starts from 7th position.
Welcome then, as we take a step back into the nostalgic golden days of motorsport. Spa is unashamedly a throwback, and all the better for it. Climbs, drops, sharp turns, chicanes, sweeping high-speed corners, all while taking in some of the most beautiful scenery that Europe has to offer. This might sound like a travel brochure, but it's not. It's a race day. Welcome along to Spa-Francorchamps for the Belgian Grand Prix. Spa-Francorchamps then, a historic 19-corner circuit with a lap distance of 4.35 miles. There's over 100 metres of elevation change here, and with long stretches of the lap spent flat out, a good top speed will be vital for success. Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Joshua Pearce lines up on pole position, edging out Max Verstappen, who'll start from P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Piastri, George Russell and Albon, Norris, Fernando Alonso, Colapinto and Pierre Gasly, Aaron, Hadjar, Carlos Sainz and Ocon, Lawson, Bortoleto, Sonny Hayes and Ollie Behrman, Antonelli, Stroll, Hulkenberg and Lewis Hamilton rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. And alongside me in the commentary box today, a man who I always look up to, which is easier said than done, Anthony Davidson. Now, I'll be generous here. It's not that long ago that you were racing and entertaining us on a Sunday. But in the years since, the sport has changed quite a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has, Crofty. You know, the cars have got bigger, they're heavier, but critically, there's more downforce to play with as well now. There was around 4 tons of downforce on the car at 300 kilometers an hour when I drove. You're now looking more towards 5 tons of downforce. So there's a big difference in performance. But because of that, the car being heavier and bigger, you've got to drive in a smoother way. You've got to look after it a bit more. You've got to nurse it through the slow speed corners more. They were much more nimble, agile machines when I drove in Formula 1 compared to now.
All right, let's have a quick radio check, please. Radio check. Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
All right, we've redeemed ourselves and we've got this pole position that we wanted, and we're going to stick with the one stop for today's race based off the pace in the sprint. Should be a pretty cruisy race once we break the DRS, but that is not a guarantee, as anything can happen here in Formula 1, and especially around a track like Spa, as we now look to the lights and it's foot to the floor and we're away for the Grand Prix here in Belgium, and it's a little bit of a crappy start, to be honest, but we get dive bombed by Charles Leclerc. We take avoiding action, but we've locked wheels with Max Verstappen. He goes off into the gravel, and he is going to plummet all the way down the field. He is going to be absolutely last, and he is last by miles. The time delta to him and Lewis Hamilton in 21st continues to drop. It is 5 seconds. Max Verstappen now finds himself off the field, and he's also carrying damage, as so are we. We got floor damage from that collision, and that could be the end of our race. Well, theoretically, it could be the end of our race, because around a track like this, having floor damage could really hurt our pace. You can see that we're still outside of a second from Charles Leclerc, so it's not like we're making massive inroads on that Ferrari at the moment. It's currently sitting at 1.3 seconds, and so has it all gone south for us in turn 1 on lap 1 at the very start of the Grand Prix? It 100% has for Max Verstappen. He's recovering quite well, though. Despite the damage that he's picked up, he's definitely got damage. I saw the end plate sitting on the road, and as he drove off, he was missing one of his end plates. He now finds himself only 1.4 seconds, so he is probably driving through a bit of red mist at the moment, and finds himself catching the field at a rate of knots. And at a rate of knots, these two are battling, Alex Albon and Lando Norris. And we saw this in the sprint race with Esteban Ocon, I believe it was, in the Haas Toyota, trying something a little bit different and catching their opponent a little bit unawares, going around the outside into the bus stop chicane. But I feel like for Lando here, he's done exactly what happened in the sprint race with Esteban, and he's going to find himself now under attack from Alex Albon. And I actually think, from memory now, it was Albon in the battle there with Ocon as well. So Albon will slingshot his way back into 5th position. Norris will have to stay in a 6th position and try and figure out another way to get ahead of the Williams and stay ahead of the Williams, as we now get our first objective of the Grand Prix, to overtake Charles Leclerc. We've caught up to him. We're now within his DRS. We're about half a second behind, and we've had a really good run coming out of here now, and we're going to use this, and we're going to try it and see if we can't make this work, but we're going to overtake him before we even make it to Blanchimont. And so that was an absolutely really good overtake from ourselves, and we've managed to do, unlike what Ocon and what Norris have been able to do, we've stayed ahead by the time we got to the next DRS zone. We've actually been able to break that DRS, so despite the damage, the pace actually seems pretty good. And now moving forward to lap 5, that gap is now at 2.5 seconds, as Fernando Alonso sends it down the inside from a very far ways away into the bus stop chicane, and on his teammate as well, Paul Aaron, in the other Aston Martin Honda. It's a very cool footage there, looking over the shoulder of the two-time champ, and he will get that move completed. He now finds himself up into 9th. The Astons swap positions. They will remain in 9th and 10th, rounding out the two final points-paying positions, but they're in a little bit of a train there, being held by Alex Albon in that Williams. The McLaren of Oscar Piastri has just got himself ahead of the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc to get himself now up into 2nd position. Charles would drop down to 3rd. So since we got by Charles Leclerc there, the pace hasn't been looking too good for him, because we've now extended our lead to 3 seconds, and he has now lost that 2nd position to Oscar here. And Ocon once again battling it out to try and get himself into the points here, and unfortunately still sits in 11th, just behind of Paul Aaron. And as I say, that actually moves himself now up into that 10th position, as we saw there Alex Albon get himself back ahead of the Alpine Mercedes of Pierre Gasly. And there's been plenty of battles going into this chicane, as once more we will see it again, this time with George Russell. So he's actually going to dispatch Charles Leclerc going down the Kemmel Straight, and this is going to be him now onto the podium. So there has to be something going on with this Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, because he can't have just fallen off of a cliff this quickly. We are coming towards the end of the tyre stint. It was lap 10 that we were intending to peer onto the hard compound tyres. So I guess we are coming towards the end of this tyre stint. But yeah, the pace drop-off from Charles Leclerc is quite concerning to have a look at. And it's the complete opposite for Lewis Hamilton. He's made his way through the field very well, actually. Started down in last, got handed a position straight away from Max Verstappen, who, by the way, is now in 20th position, so made a few positions. But yeah, Hamilton from the last to 13th so far in the first 9 laps, as now Russell is looking a little bit slow. And is that a engine issue or some sort of issue for George Russell? It is. He's got a right rear puncture for the Mercedes of George Russell. So he's only just taken that podium position away from Charles Leclerc, and it looks like Leclerc's going to take it immediately, but he's also under immense pressure from Lando Norris. So Leclerc has been handed back of that podium position so far from a stricken George Russell. So he'll be pulling into the lane probably a little bit earlier than he expected, but we are right at the pit window as it's popped up onto my screen now. The pit window has opened for ourselves, so we'll be boxing at the end of this lap. And because we will be boxing at the end of this lap, even though we've got a 6-second lead ahead of Oscar Piastri, we're going to be trying to make sure we do a quick in-lap here to protect ourselves from any sort of undercut if anyone has tried to do anything, or even if someone tries to go for the overcut. And Mark is on the same wavelength, because our new objective is to set a quick lap time of 152.6. Easy as, because we're currently lapping in about the 46-47s at the moment, so still a very good pace from ourselves. We'll be pulling into the pits now with a lead of 6.4 seconds ahead of the McLaren of Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris has got himself up into 3rd, by the way, so he's also got past Charles Leclerc. Colapinto now finds himself in 5th position, and interestingly enough, it is going to be Oscar Piastri who continues ahead, and he'll go for the overcut. I thought it would have been Lando Norris coming in, staying out actually, because of the track position with Oscar ahead of Lando, but it is going to be Oscar trying to make an overcut work, so maybe trying to think a little bit outside the box to try and catch up to ourselves and see if they can't make anything happen. But we'll pull out of the pit lane about 11 seconds behind, and as Piastri now comes into the lane, that gap is now down to under 10, so our out lap was about a second quicker than Oscar Piastri's in lap. So that, I think, has busted that theory that they might be able to go for a little bit of an overcut here with Oscar Piastri. And I wonder if this is actually going to now mean that he could be under threat from anyone behind. But the track looks pretty well empty. All the cars in the background are coming into the lane. So I think Norris is in the clear. Here comes Lando Norris down the straight. He's just crossed the control line now to move up into 3rd position. And yeah, Oscar Piastri does maintain a 2nd position despite the overcut and Lando Norris trying to, getting that 1 lap extra time on that fresh set of tyres. We now get our next objective to try and drain the ERS down to 36%. We haven't really been using too much because we haven't needed a massive amount of battery, being kind of just in cruising mode for this Grand Prix. And that's Ocon. He's gone off the track into the gravel trap. And is he going to be able to keep it going, or is he going to get beat? And it looks like he's going to keep it going. No, he's come to a stop on the curb at the exit of the chicane. That's a pretty sketchy spot to come to a stop. Oh, he's got it back going again. He's got it back going again. So we should be all good. We've had a little bit of a snap there. And that's actually going to be enough for a safety car. So I thought he got it back going again. But obviously there must be a bit of gravel or something scattered across the circuit as he came back onto the track. And so that was enough that they must need to be doing a bit of a cleanup, and so they'll bring out the safety car. And we'll do an auto check now that the pit sequence has been completed and the field has been neutralised. So we're leading the way ahead of the 2 McLarens, rounding out the podium. Then it's Charles Leclerc, Pierre Gasly, Franco Colapinto, Fernando Alonso, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, and our teammate Sonny Hayes has done a brilliant recovery so far. Same with Lewis Hamilton to find out themselves in P9, P10. Then it's the 2 Williams of Albon ahead of Sainz, Paul Aaron, Oliver Behrman, Isaac Hadjar, Gabriel Bortolotto, Lance Stroll, and Max Verstappen, the championship leader going into this round, finds himself down in 18th position after that collision with myself on the first lap. Then it's Lawson, Antonelli, Ocon, and Nico Hülkenberg rounding out the field at the moment as we get ready to go green here in Belgium. It's lap 15. We'll be going on to lap 16 of 22. So only a few laps to go, really, of this Grand Prix. And we put the foot to the floor, and we are away once again for this Grand Prix. And the tyre temps definitely aren't up, because we get a big wash of mid-corner understeer and a little bit of wheel spin on the exit, just for a bit of good measure, and we dump the battery to try and make sure that we can pull well ahead of the DRS by the time that does get activated. It is now activated, and you can see that our gap is 2.3 seconds, so absolutely we have been able to pull that gap that we wanted, so we can kind of relax a bit now, knowing there isn't too much of a threat from behind. Colapinto gets himself ahead of Pierre Gasly, and while all of that was going on, Paul Aaron has retired from the Grand Prix, and that is an engine failure. And I'm trying to think about back now, and I think this could be the first engine failure for the Honda power unit in the back of the Aston Martin. So very disappointing for Aston Martin, though. They seem to be having a pretty decent run so far this season, but it's going to end in smoke for Paul Aaron as he pulls off to the side on the Kemmel Straight. And a battle now for Lewis Hamilton with the other Aston Martin Honda. And that will now put him up into 8th position, as our teammate is also looking to try and get himself ahead of the Aston Martin. And he's going to go side by side through Eau Rouge up to the top of Raidillon. And that, if he can get this done, that is going to be a very, very brave overtake to get completed. And he's going to have the DRS to pull himself ahead. And that was an absolute brilliant edge of your seat overtake from our teammate Sonny Hayes to now get himself up into 9th position after being knocked out in the first part of qualifying. So it's been a brilliant recovery drive for himself there, and there's been a few position changes. So notably though, the McLarens have swapped positions. It's now Oscar Piastri ahead of Lando Norris in that 2nd position, as Hamilton is looking to continue his charge through the field, and this time he's going to be looking to pick off Pierre Gasly, but this time down the back straight as they head into the bus stop chicane. And this time, well, unlike previous times where I said that so far the AI have been trying to catch each other unawares, but unable to do so, and end up getting re-overtaken down the next straight. I reckon Hamilton might just have the pace to prove myself wrong this time round, as his teammate Charles Leclerc gets himself ahead of Franco Colapinto now to get himself up to P4, and there it is. Look at that. Gasly hasn't been able to take advantage of Hamilton trying to use up all of his battery to get himself ahead before the bus stop chicane. And now Charles Leclerc's running slow, and that is smoke out the back of his Ferrari. So he'll retire from a 4th place finish, and that is absolutely disaster for Charles Leclerc. He was having such a good race. He was running as high as the lead at the start of the Grand Prix, taking advantage of my collision with Max Verstappen. But we'll ignore that just for now, because we have been on cruise control, and we will now take victory here in Belgium. It's back-to-back wins in Spa, and wow, what a feeling.
Waits as the checkered flag flies, and Joshua Pearce can say, "It's me, I'm a winner."
And it's always good, Crofty, to get that momentum on your side, and it's really good for your confidence as well. The more confident you are, the further that can take you.
We had drama from start to finish, but in the end, there was only ever one that could take that top spot.
So even with the damage sustained at the start of the race, we were able to recover back to the lead. And even with the safety car as well, we were able to hold on for the win. Both the McLarens finish off the podium with Piastri ahead of Lando Norris. And wow, this is going to be huge for the championship, with Verstappen finishing further down the order. And it's been a shocking couple of races for the reigning 5-time world champion so far this season. And the rest of the top 10 is Franco Colapinto ahead of George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, a brilliant recovery from our teammate Sonny Hayes to finish in 7th position ahead of Pierre Gasly, Fernando Alonso and Alex Albon. And then it was Max Verstappen outside of the points in 16th position, as Charles Leclerc and Paul Aaron are the non-finishers in today's Grand Prix. And we now lead the Drivers' Championship by 11 points to Max Verstappen, and that's Norris in 3rd, 4 points further behind, and our teammate Sonny Hayes now moves inside the top 10, 5 points behind Fernando Alonso. And for the Constructors' Championship, McLaren extend their lead to 52 points ahead of now us, Apex GP. We move into 2nd. Red Bull Ford now move to 3rd, 1 point behind us, and we are leading our driver rating rivalry against Lewis Hamilton and need to get to level 91 to win this rivalry against him. And speaking of our driver ratings, our experience, racecraft, awareness and focus gain some points. The pace is to level 91 for a new overall rating of level 90, and our driver recognition is at 57% compared to our teammate. And in the next episode, well, we've got another secret meeting. It's our second secret meeting with Mercedes that we'll be having, and this will be a tough decision to make about what could possibly go ahead, because if we do recall, I was going to be keeping a close eye on how Mercedes perform, and I have been, and to be honest, it's not looking very good. So, but anyway, we haven't seen any of the stats just of yet that they can offer us. So we'll wait and see for that secret meeting how it all goes. But for the next episode, we'll be heading to Monza for the Italian Grand Prix at the Temple of Speed. So if you did enjoy this one, please make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.